Well, hello and welcome to Being Catholic, and I'm glad you have joined us today. Well, I'm joined by, I guess, a wonderful man of God who has a great devotion to Saint Joseph. He is an author, he is a speaker, he's José Rodrigues, and we're glad to have him on the show with us today. So good afternoon to you, or should I say good morning to you?
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, now, as we can see behind you, you're all about Saint Joseph, right? And you've written many books on him. But perhaps we can start off a little bit about your life, your background, and tell us, did you have, I know I've looked at some of your interviews and you've spoken about your life as a child growing up in your family life. So perhaps you can share with our audience a bit about your own life and your background.
Well, I grew up in Winnipeg, Canada. It's a city, and I was born into a non-religious household. My parents were both baptized Catholics, but we weren't practicing. So I didn't really have that spiritual nourishment growing up until a few years later. I used to go to catechism class, but unfortunately I didn't learn much there. I knew more than the teacher did at times. It was more about holding hands and singing songs, but there was no theological value there. But for some reason I was intrigued by the Catholic faith. I wanted to learn more, so I went out on my own to do it. And when I was younger, I developed a love for the Blessed Virgin Mary of Fatima. And if you look at the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, they encompass the catechism of the Catholic Church. They summarize it beautifully. And so that's how I really got to learn my faith, was through Our Lady. So growing up, I had a very strong devotion to Our Lady of Fatima, more so than our Lord, because I was still trying to get to know him, but I was getting to know him through Our Lady. And, growing up, I wasn't, like the average boy or lad, I wasn't into sports or trucks or anything normal like that. I was quiet and introverted and into religion. And, a lot of people see that as, well, that's old lady stuff, going to church, right? So I had a lot of pressure to conform to what society expected of me as a young male, but I just couldn't fit into that mold. And so it was tough growing up, being the odd man out, but that didn't deter me from wanting to learn more about God and his saints. So I just kind of did it on my own, so to speak.
How did you get to know him? Why Saint Joseph?
Well, growing up, I didn't have a good relationship with my own father. We still don't have a good relationship, but I always wanted that father figure. A father is supposed to help mold, love, nurture, his son from boyhood into manhood. And I wasn't getting that. I was afraid of my father. I used to hide, right? And I remember I'd go to church once in a while, and I noticed that in the church, at the front of the altar, or beside the altar, there was two niches. One for Our Lady, which was beautiful, beautiful statue, flowers, banners. And then on the other side, you had Saint Joseph in a niche, and it was just barren. There was nothing there. It was just stone, right? It was very cold. And so I used to look at him during Mass, and I used to feel bad for him. I thought, I know how you feel, being pushed off to the side and not standing out. And so I kind of resonated with that. That's how I started to first meditate on him, was seeing him abandoned in the church. And so the more I got to know him, the more I realized, I think he could be my dad, because I can approach him. I feel like I can be guided by his example. And if he was a good enough father for the second person of the Most Holy Trinity, surely he's a good enough father for me. So that's how it all started. I just really needed that male role model, that father, and who better than the father of Christ?
And at what age were you at this time when you started to take an interest in this wonderful saint?
I would say maybe around 12, 13 years old.
Okay, so that was quite young. Now, you have struggled in your past with addictions, and perhaps you can share a little bit about that and how Saint Joseph has helped you overcome these addictions.
Well, when I see addiction as a type of demon. I don't know yet if I see it as a literal demon or figurative, but it's something evil. And in the litany of Saint Joseph, we hail him as Joseph most chaste. and Joseph, terror of demons.
Mhm.
So I thought these go hand in hand very well. Pornography, sex addiction, that's basically the antichrist of chastity, what it means to be chaste. So who better to help you with that than Joseph, most chaste? He wasn't a god or, a superhero. He was a man, you know, sanctified by God. And so he's a perfect example. And with pornography and sex addiction, you do end up objectifying the person or the people. They do become kind of irrelevant. They're just there to satisfy you, and then that's it. There's no human behind there. And Pope Benedict the 16th mentions something about that with Saint Joseph. He says, Joseph teaches us that it is possible to love without possessing.
Mhm.
So Saint Joseph loved our Blessed Mother so much. He was married to her, but he never had sex with her, but he still loved her. He didn't possess her, but that didn't hinder him from giving himself completely to her in every other way. And so I think that's a wonderful example, about not possessing, but just, loving. And so by having Saint Joseph there, to guide us, to look up to, we can draw a lot of strength from him.
Mhm.
And I actually have one weird encounter. I had a weird encounter with an actual demon once. I don't tell too many people about this because either they don't believe you or they think you were imagining things, right?
Yes.
But I woke up I was meditating on ancestral sin the night before, and I noticed that there is a lot of, sexual deviation in my family through the generations with the firstborn males. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. There's a pattern. And anyway, that night, I was getting ready for bed, and suddenly I saw this big black shadow. And though it was a shadow, I could see these kind of quills or spikes. It's hard to explain. But anyway, I don't usually get scared very easily, and I actually yelled out at the top of my lungs. I was terrified, and this thing was coming towards me. And the first thing I thought of was, Saint Joseph, terror of demons, help me. Saint Joseph, help me. Saint Joseph, help me. And then it kind of just, receded. I got goosebumps now. I don't talk about it often, but he really saved the day. Like, I thought I was going to die. Like, that thing wanted me. And I thought, I stumbled onto something here, and now I know what Saint Joseph can really do. Demons flee at his name, like terror of demons is not just a pretty title, an honorary title that we give to people, it is a responsibility. So Saint Joseph isn't just standing there on a pedestal, oh yeah, I'm the terror of demons, hello. He's fighting for us if we invoke him, So we have to remember that with pornography, which is a type of demon, when you get tempted, or with sex addiction, go to Joseph right away, go to confession and go to Joseph. Those are the two big ones. So
well,
I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, you've answered it very, very well. And so tell us about the books, how that journey began into writing about Saint Joseph, because your books are very, very detailed about his life, his history, details about the mystics and so forth. So perhaps you can share about how that all began.
Well, I was teaching catechism class in the church one day, and after class, a parishioner came by, and she was just curious about, how was it going teaching the kids, and what are they learning about? And I told her, oh, well, I taught them about Saint Joseph today, who he was, how important he is. And she kind of looked at me. She didn't quite understand. She says, who's Saint Joseph? And I thought, lady, you're Catholic. You don't know who Saint Joseph is. So I said, well, he's the guardian of Jesus, his father. He's the husband of Mary. You see him every Christmas in the nativity scene. And she said, Joseph? Well, I didn't know he was a saint. And I was shocked. I thought, what do you mean you didn't know he was a saint? So then I started bothering my parish priest, who's a very good friend of mine, Father Paul Tingley. He's an amazing priest, an amazing human being. He's been an amazing spiritual father to me. Anyway, I kept bothering him, saying, okay, Father, you got to write a book about Joseph, because he loved him like I did. I said, this woman didn't even know who he was, and she's Catholic. Like, you got to do this. You got to do this. And one day he just said, you know what? You do it. you can do it. And I thought, well, I haven't gone to university. I'm not a seminarian, theologian. I don't know anything, but he challenged me. And so I started this out as kind of research for myself to say, do I really know who Saint Joseph is? Really? So I started at the beginning. I started reading Mystical City of God by Venerable Maria d'Agreda. And I thought, wow, there's a treasure trove of information about this guy. And people say we don't know anything about him. We know lots about him. We just don't look for it. It's not presented to us.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, there's something here. So the more I researched, approved mystics and saints and popes throughout history, I thought, we have his whole life story. It's just not all together in under one cover. So that's how that started. And to this day, I still haven't been able to get a Catholic publisher. So I've just been self-publishing for all these years. But it's now people are finally starting to take notice, because you have Father Calloway now with his book, Consecration to Saint Joseph, which is heaven sent. I think when he becomes a saint, his statues should show him holding that book, Consecration to Saint Joseph, because that has set the world on fire with love for him. And now people are wanting to learn more about him. So they're looking into other authors' books. It's incredible.
So, Jose, why do you think the church has been slow in promoting Saint Joseph? Because he hasn't been really a prominent feature in the Catholic Church. We've known him, I guess, and including myself, as a person who's been kind of in the background, an older guy. But when you really think about Saint Joseph, indeed reading your books and getting to know him a wee bit more, you see he is the head of the household. He is the head of the family. He was given the authority to look after our Lord and the Blessed Mother. So it's not surprising that he has such glory in heaven. But why do you think that the church has been kind of a wee bit slow in recognizing him?
Well, I find that the church does move very slowly when it comes to a lot. They don't want to make any rash decisions, but the first millennium, the church is getting started. It's focusing on getting to know who Jesus is. Who is this God, man, that we are building a faith around, a church around. Then the second millennium is getting to know Jesus through Mary, through her eyes. Who is this woman that God chose? And also you see suddenly Our Lady's appearing all over the world during the second millennium. And then the third, well, naturally, St. Joseph comes next, because we want to get to know his other parent, And I think it's providential, because there's never been such a crisis right now with fatherhood as there is now. And so we need a father now. We need that prototype now more than ever of a human father, how to be the head of the family, how to be a good father, a teacher, a worker. But I think a lot of the silence has to do with us just not listening to the church, because at the turn of the century, especially, in the 17th century, you had Venerable Maria d'Agreda, you had Madre Cecilia Baj, you have these mystics suddenly having experiences of Saint Joseph. You notice in artwork towards the 18th century, he's being depicted in a more flattering way. So people were starting to take notice. You have the popes who started writing encyclicals about him, mentioning him, promoting devotion to him, saying, go to Saint Joseph. Popes started recognizing it, but we were thinking, oh yeah, that's nice. And then that's it. But I mean, Benedict XV in 1920, in Bonum Sane, he can't say it any clearer than this. He actually says, we order all the bishops of the Catholic world to promote devotion to Saint Joseph among the faithful, especially every Wednesday. Not just on his feast day, every single Wednesday of the year. The bishops were supposed to be encouraging the faithful. And, no doubt they probably did for the first year, and then it went to the wayside. So we're just not listening. And that's my fear, actually, with this year of Saint Joseph, is for this 1 year, everyone loves him, everyone's reading about him, praying to him. And then next year, what? Is it going to be the same where we forget about him again? We're always looking for the new novelty, right? So I'm hoping by the grace of the Holy Spirit, the church will continue this development of devotion to Saint Joseph. One thing people say often, which I mentioned earlier, is we don't know anything about him, so how can we have a devotion to him? Look at Saint Philomena, for example. She has a huge following, but we don't know anything about her, not that I know of. We have her tombstone and her bones. We don't have any legends or stories, or we don't know anything about her, but she's very popular and she still works miracles. Well, Saint Joseph, we do know a lot about. Maybe because he wasn't depicted in a flattering way for the longest time. Maybe that's why people had an aversion. Like you mentioned, the old man in the background, nobody really cares. Like they want an attractive saint that they can look to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll keep going though, this momentum.
Yes, yes. Well, it is true. Sometimes I think the church and focus on Saint Joseph, please God, people won't forget about him at the end of this year. And perhaps you can just talk a little bit about the devotions to him and the impact they have had on your own life, because I've gone through your books and there are various devotions. There's the 7 Sorrows and 7 Joys of Saint Joseph, which we are featuring at the website right now. But perhaps you can share a little bit more about the devotions and the impact they can have on our life.
Well, I mean, like the rosary, you're meditating on mysteries, you're praying, you're communing, with Our Lady and our Lord. Saint Joseph has a devotion that I really love. It's called the Holy Cloak devotion. And the reason why I like that is it's because it focuses on various aspects of his life. So you're learning about his life with Jesus and Mary. You're imploring his help. You're also glorifying the Trinity for having exalted Saint Joseph to such a high position. So it has a bit of everything. But what I really like about the Holy Cloak is that it starts and ends with a promise by the one praying it. It's not just rattling off prayers, there's also an obligation in there. It's like a contract. It says, I promise to do all that I can to honor you all the days of my life. Don't pray the Holy Cloak unless you're really going to honor him all the days of your life, because it's right in there. You're saying that you're going to do this. So that's why I really enjoy the Holy Cloak. It has helped me a lot too, because like the rosary, like I said, you're meditating on various mysteries of the hidden life of Jesus, through Joseph. So the Holy Cloak is one of my favorites. You mentioned the 7 Sorrows and 7 Joys, which Saint Joseph promoted himself in an apparition to 2 Franciscan friars who were shipwrecked. He saved them from a shipwreck, and they said, "How can we repay you?" And he says, "Pray my 7 sorrows and 7 joys." There's also the little office of Saint Joseph.
Yes.
We have the divine office, little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Saint Joseph has one too, and his is simpler than the others, but there's beauty in simplicity. It's a great way to have Saint Joseph throughout your day, to carry him with you, to walk with him throughout your day and sanctify all that you're doing. So,
well, what if there are people watching? I'm sure there are many people out there who don't have father figures in their lives and who are looking to somebody. What would you say to people like that, like yourself, who are looking for someone special to look up to in their lives? I guess Saint Joseph would be the perfect father figure for them, wouldn't he be?
Oh, most definitely. You can't have a better father or husband than Saint Joseph.
Yes.
When it comes to choosing, I mean, lots of people, they have different patron saints or saints that they feel connected to. I feel you can't really force a relationship with a saint because you're encouraged to. So I could tell people, go to Joseph, go to Joseph. But unless they feel that kind of connection, it's just going to be lip service. It's going to be phony. And that's not fair to you or to the saint, because saints are people too, right? They're not just pretty statues.
Yeah.
They're communicating to us, we're communicating to them. So what I would suggest though is, if people are having trouble finding that saint or even developing devotion to Saint Joseph, just to think about Saint Joseph. You don't have to start with a million litanies and prayers. Just contemplate him. I'd like to quickly read a quote from Benedict XVI that really spoke to me, if that's all right.
Sure, of course.
So he said this in 2009 on his trip to Cameroon, and this really resonates. He says, if discouragement overwhelms you, think of the faith of Saint Joseph. If anxiety has its grip on you, think of the hope of Saint Joseph. If exasperation or hatred seizes you, think of the love of Saint Joseph, who was the first man to behold the face of God, the human face of God. Let us thank God for giving Joseph to us as an example and model of love for him. So even if you can't have the most devoted relationship with him, you can at least recognize, his attributes and the things he went through that we go through. I mean, a lot of fathers today, they find out their wife or girlfriend is pregnant. What do they say? They say, no, get an abortion, or they run away sometimes. They can't handle that responsibility. So a lot of women are abandoned. They don't know what to do. So unfortunately, they do away with the child. St. Joseph almost put Mary away quietly. He almost left the scene because he was afraid too. He didn't quite understand this mystery of what was going on. But he listened to the voice of God and he took on responsibility. He manned up. He took that woman as his wife. He raised that child. He provided. He owned up to his responsibility. And that's what all men are called to do. Whether you are devoted to St. Joseph or not, that is your responsibility. So who to be a better role model than someone who's been there?
It's really excellent.
Yeah.
Really, really excellent. Yes. I'm just looking at your background there and the photograph of St. Joseph. And what I love about him is that it's almost like he's like a proud father and he's looking up towards the heavens. And I think that's how we should see St. Joseph, is a person who's proud, who loves God and loves his family. And like you say, that's how every father should be. Proud, look after the father and not be afraid. So moving on to your books, how can we get a copy of them? How can people, if they want to know more, where do they go?
So my books are available worldwide through Amazon. There aren't many Catholic bookstores that carry it. I mean, I don't have a publicist or anything, but worldwide on Amazon. Also, I do have my website, adtbeatejoseph.wixsite.com/main. I know it's a long address, but I can't afford to buy the domain.
We will put that on our website and all the details to your books. So look, it's been great talking to you today, and hopefully in the future you can come back on and talk some more with us, because St. Joseph is a wonderful saint, and we want to do as much as we can to promote your work and to promote this wonderful saint. So thank you for talking to us today, all the way up there in Canada. It's getting dark here, and it's probably just getting light over where you are. So look, continued great work, continued blessing of St. Joseph over your life. And look, thank you for talking to us, José, and God bless.
Thank you for the opportunity. You've been an absolute delight.
Okay, thank you so much. God bless.